Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Healing Our Children 2018 World Summit. I'm Alison Morris from Full Potential Parenting, and I'm really happy to have you back for another interview. My guest today is Heather Nardi, who is an interesting kind of coach, and she does all sorts of really fascinating things. So I'm just going to read a little bit of her bio for you. She considers herself a sacred child coach. So she helps parents create deeper understanding and connection with their children through soulful parenting practices. She's an author and inspirational speaker. She's a certified holistic life coach. She has all sorts of interesting certifications and trainings that we can talk about. And what we're really going to be focusing on today is kind of how she came to do this work and what it involves. And a lot of it really starts with the journey that she had with her daughter. So we're going to start with that story, but welcome to the summit. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share our journey and our story.
Yeah, this is exciting. And unlike many of the folks I interview for this summit, Heather is actually in the same metro area, and we've actually met in person, but that's not often the case. So that's kind of nice to have
Right.
that connection here. So tell us where this all began for you.
Sure. So the journey is about my daughter. She actually just turned 18. February 29th was her birthday. So she's just turned 18 and became an adult. But it goes back to even when she was a baby, when she was born. She was a baby that was difficult to nurture, really had challenging time sleeping, but it went into more than that in like third grade, eight years old, where we really saw some behavior issues. We saw school avoidance happening. So what we did is we went to the doctor because we knew something wasn't right. Her behavior wasn't right, how she normally would act. She loved first grade. She went to school every day, never missed a day in first grade. Third grade, she didn't want to go to school. She struggled. She had these thoughts, these anxious thoughts and worry and, even just about the world, questioning everything and just very concerning as parents. And she had some violent tendencies towards mainly me. So she'd go to school, kind of keep things bottled up, come home and be aggressive towards me. And I think it just all released. What she couldn't act out in school would come home and it would release onto me. So we took her to her pediatrician and, searching out help however we could. And, they have this checklist. They're checking off the things we're describing, and she met all the qualifications or all the criteria for generalized anxiety disorder. So at that time, at 8 years old in third grade, she received that diagnosis, generalized anxiety disorder.
Okay.
It was recommended that she go on a low dosage of prescription medication, so that would have been an antidepressant, and do therapy. And at that point in our life, we didn't know what else to do, so we did follow the doctor's orders. And actually...
And can I ask what kind of therapy they recommended, like play therapy or?
No, it wasn't a psychologist, but someone studying to be a psychologist. So more like verbal, and there was some play to get her to speak out. So play therapy, games, trying to see what was really causing what was causing her that anxiety, and kind of giving her some coping skills to get through that at school and at home. And, what can you do instead of, reacting to your mom in that way? So trying to build up those coping skills for her.
And was that helpful at all?
It was a little bit, but we really didn't see much change. Yeah.
And was she open to participating with that therapist, or was she, not very cooperative?
She was, not very cooperative. She would go, shrug her shoulders, I don't know, or shake her head. She didn't really want to respond to the questions. So my husband and I would kind of joke because it felt like she would just go there and color.
Yeah, and so many of the parents listening to this are, they're laughing along because they've tried everything to get their kids to go along with or participate in different therapy sessions of all sorts of, different approaches over the years.
And along the way, we continued that. There would be times where she would break, like I remember one time she broke my sunglasses in the car because she didn't want to get out of the car to go to therapy. She just did not want to participate. And I'm wondering if she knew it wasn't really working for her either. If we weren't seeing much change.
Yeah, but at that point, of course, she's not articulating an alternative, right? This is what would be really helpful for me instead, Mom.
Right. She's
right?
not just showing her in anger, I don't want to, she's just behaving in a making bad choices to kind of to hurt me, I feel like, because she doesn't want to do that type of therapy. She doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to do that.
Okay, so then you tried, and she's on the meds, and are you seeing anything? So are we talking like an SSRI kind of?
Yes.
Zoloft or Prozac kind of thing? Okay.
Exactly.
And was that making any difference?
It made a little bit, and I think we noticed it at first, and I don't know if it was more like we felt like we're almost excited to have something. We're like, oh, something to help her, because you just want your child to feel and, feel better and act better and, all these things. So I don't know if it was us in the initial phase just being like, oh, we're seeing a change. But really over the long period, I didn't see much shift in her. There was somewhat small maybe, but nothing that I would be like, wow, this is amazing. This made so much difference in our life. Did not see that. Over the years, we actually saw things shift to where she got different diagnoses. She got oppositional defiant disorder diagnosed at the age of 10 because of the behavior continued. It became more aggressive, swearing, breaking things, so more out of control.
And was this happening mostly at home, or was this already now spilling over into school as well?
It was mostly at home and trying to get her to school. So she would fight me to get into the car. And then the principal would say to me, just get her to school. And then I'd be fighting to get her out of the car.
Which, is such an awful place to be for both of you. Because who wants to be like physically forcing their child to go somewhere they desperately don't want to be? That's just such a bad place to be in your heart.
It is. It's so traumatic for both of you. Yeah. And I'm married and my husband didn't see all that behavior. So it was really put on to me as the mom, and then I would call him and explain, but he didn't have that. He didn't feel it. He didn't really know the extent of what was happening. So just to carry that and just to know you had to send your child in that state and walk away and know that they'll probably be okay, but still that's so heartbreaking.
Right.
To leave her at school and she's screaming and okay, the principal will take care of you, but I have to walk away. It's a very hard.
Now, did you think at all at that point about homeschooling her, or was that not on the table really for you?
It wasn't at that point. I didn't think that I could deal with her every day.
Just because of the way she was treating you and behaving. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I think a lot of people are thinking, yeah, I totally get that. It's sort of, what is that from Princess Bride? Inconceivable, right? It's like just, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Because I had to look at it for both of us. I'm like, would that even be, because she had asked, I'm like, would that even be good for either one of us? I don't know if we would have been able to handle each other. So again, that was the oppositional defiant then disorder we had. And she was diagnosed at that same time at 10 with ADHD, inattentive. So more of the daydreaming part of it, and kind of more of the, she would, just being kind of forgetful and that kind of space. She was in that too. So we had 8 years, then we had at 10. And then again, we're kind of going through this cycle, it felt like. At around age 13, she was experiencing depression when she went to, now from a small Catholic school where they did work with us when we did struggle. It felt okay to leave her screaming, and this teachers really knew her. Now at 7th grade, she went to a public school. And that really, that whole change, that shift, and then being a young, a teen, preteen, and a female, all of that combined really brought her into a depressive state, where she, for 30 days, didn't leave her room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we had therapy, in-home therapy come. She would hardly talk to them. She would lay her head down on the table, or she wouldn't even come out of her room. We had truancy officer from school contacting us. We were, being kind of threatened, if she doesn't get to school, you might have to go to court. So these are all real things that were occurring in our family. And also I had another son, I have a son that's younger, so he's seeing all this too.
How much younger is he?
He's 6 years younger.
Okay.
So he's quite a bit younger, and I'm trying to navigate that to kind of keep him protected from some of this behavior he's seeing. But that's hard to do when she's kind of consuming the whole house and all of our emotions. And then even the school said that I should call the police and have them bring her to school.
Oh, right, because there's a really helpful suggestion. Oh, wow, okay.
And in my, even in that moment, I'm like, that is not the right way to handle this. That would be traumatic, again, for everyone involved, that I couldn't even do that. But that's what our schools are telling us to do with a mentally, a child that's mentally ill and depressed. And then we had suicidal ideation. So that's the thoughts of suicide and harm. And that then was the point where we had to look at other types of treatment. She was not getting better in our home. She was not participating in life. She was not participating in any kind of therapy either. So then we decided to, with the help of our psychologist who recommended, we send her to an inpatient residential treatment facility. So that's somewhere that she would go to and actually stay there overnight, do schooling.
Did she react to that idea at all, or was she just in such a low state that she was barely, things just weren't even registering with her?
She didn't even know that was going to happen. So what we had to do was not tell her that this was happening. And this was really hard for me because it was right around Christmas time. And we had found out, and we were waiting for a bed to open. So what happens when you have to wait till a bed does become available. There's not many facilities for mental illness for kids to be treated. So we were kind of waiting. Then after Christmas, we got the notification that there was something available. So that Christmas was really hard because I knew, and my husband knew, that it was just a moment of time that she'd be leaving. She didn't know.
And at the same time, you're so desperate for some relief that you're looking forward to it probably in a way. And then you're guilty about thinking that. I'm speculating, but I.
Yes. Well, you're at that point where you're like, what else can I do? But you do feel guilty because you're like, this is my child. And you kind of wonder, I remember thinking, how did it get to this point? How did it get so bad?
Well, and I think it can creep up on you, and so that it sort of gets worse and worse over time, but in incremental ways, and then you don't realize just how far things have fallen, how much they've slipped.
Exactly.
And then maybe somebody who you haven't seen for a while, or a family member, it was just like, oh my God, like what happened here?
Right, because you're
Yeah.
so into it day by day, living in that. Yeah, at moment by moment, you don't really realize, yeah, what has occurred over the time. So what we had to do was we had to lie to her because it was more for her safety. We thought, so when we did transport her, we didn't tell her where she was going. And it was because she has tried to jump out of the car before, a moving car. On the way to school, she tried to jump out. Or she's hit me when I was driving. At that point, there were times she would hit me while I was driving to appointments. Or we would have had to have like police follow or take her by ambulance. So we chose to just not tell her where she was going, which again is heartbreaking and really hard. And she still has trust issues from that time.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So she gets admitted, and she's 13 at this point, correct?
Yep. She's 13. She actually has her 14th birthday while she's there.
And is this a local facility? I mean, are you able to visit regularly, or is it like she's off somewhere and it was going to be months before you saw her again?
Right. It was local. It was in St. Cloud, which is about 80 miles or so from where we live. So those that aren't in the area. So it was about 80 miles from our home. So we were able to talk to her on the phone daily and then visit on the weekends. But she was in a facility with other children, such a variety of issues going on. So we had kids that were sexually abused, kids that had drug issues, kids that had no parents, kids that were runaways. And then my daughter who is struggling with mental illness. So our facilities aren't equipped just to work with specifically mental illness. So she's learning and hearing things that she had never heard or seen in her life. So then that's causing some more trauma too. They had one time they had a canine dog come to their unit searching for drugs. And so she was afraid that somebody hid drugs in her bedroom area. This is stuff. It's just we don't have enough facilities.
And she was getting what sort of therapy while she was there?
She was getting group therapy. There was group therapy, then there's one-on-one, and then there was family when we would come up for the weekend.
But it's talk therapy and it's medication.
Yes, talk, and then switching meds if needed, adding meds for the different symptoms that she's having. And then she did schooling there also.
So how many different drugs was she on finally?
She was on, I think it was about 4.
Wow. Okay.
At that point, they even put her on Ritalin. She never had been on that. Yeah. Okay. And then she wasn't sleeping well. So they were putting her on, not a sleeping pill, just they put her on, what's the over-the-counter just to stabilize.
Like Ambien or something? Or I don't know the names of all those.
Yeah, it wasn't a prescription med. It's just an over-the-counter med that's supposed to help you sleep. But
okay.
So there's like the symptoms from the medications that they put you on, and then she was having, allergy stuff. And so there's all these variety too that aren't prescription, but over-the-counter things that she had to add on too that she had to be taking. And
is she responding well at all to any of this therapy? Is she glad to be there? Is she coming out of her depression, or what are you seeing at this point?
We were seeing her, we were kind of joking after. We saw her do what she needed to do to get out of there. So they really they put together a plan, and I think kids they're smart. They know what they need to do. So they had a plan of things she needed to complete or issues she needed to resolve or work through to be able to come home. And that was her main goal, was to come home. So she would really make sure she's doing what she needs to do, participate if she needs to participate. And so I don't know if she's really, I think she was learning things. She was learning simple tasks that she didn't really do at home. So she learned to do her laundry. She learned to work with a group of people that she didn't know. So she had to adjust to people of different personalities, and that she had never had to do that before. Kind of forced her out of her comfort zone. I don't know necessarily if it was working that well with her mental illness, that space, but we did see quite a bit of a change in her growth, like personality wise, and her growth in just basic skills too, because she had to do that. They had to cook, they had to make their bed, things that she hadn't had to do at home.
Okay. But is she acting out in the same ways though? Is she aggressive or violent or?
Not at all. So she knew she needed to be good and behave there. She really knew that.
Interesting.
She saw what would happen to like other kids if they didn't. And she would ask too, when can I come home? And then they would tell her what she needed to do. So, so she was there a total of 5 months. But when she did come home, we did see her really come out of her shell. So she wasn't in that depressive state anymore. And when she left, a lot of the girls in her group were sad to see her go. I think she really inspired a lot of the other girls there, just because she came from probably a different kind of life, a different, kind of had different stories to contribute in group. She's really good about supporting others. So I'm sure she did that quite often there. And I know when she was leaving, people were really sad to see her go.
So she completed the treatment and she came home. She's 14 at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And then what?
Well, while she was gone, I'll add this. So while she was gone, I had the time to work on myself.
Oh, that. That piece of it. Okay.
Yeah. Because it was so often I'm caring for her like daily and worrying about her, and everything kind of was around her in our home, I did take the 5 months and really focused in on myself, not being mom so much. I mean, I did take time to be with my son, but focusing in and looking at things differently, and kind of did research around mental health and looking at some different ways of treatment. I did a lot of stuff around self-love. I did a whole year-long program around self-love. I did a lot of healing around some of my own issues. And then I was really surrounding myself with some different women that I hadn't before, and they're really inspiring me and empowering me. And they didn't know my story of having a child with mental illness. They just knew me as Heather. So it was kind of a different group of people. And so when she came back, and I think she could feel that whole shift in me. And then she shifted herself and felt kind of a shift and change. And about a few months after she returned, then she did ask to get off all medications. That was a big turning point for us.
Hang on one second. I'll have to splice this together later. One second.
Okay.
Unmute.
Oh, here.
Okay, sorry about that. Wow.
Okay.
Whoops. Unmute. Did I mute you? Okay. Unmute.
There we go.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, got the wrong, one of my earpieces doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
We
Take a breath, huh?
We have started, I'm starting, I don't know if it's a homeschooling or an unschooling period with her.
Yeah.
Because since I've been home, she was coming up with all these reasons to not be at school.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally was like, I can be really irritated and resentful of this, or I'm just going to surrender to it. And so we're sort of trying this out for the rest of the spring, but it's meant that she needs to cooperate while I'm doing this. And she's been pretty good most of the time, but not always. So sorry about that.
Oh,
Okay.
no. Okay.
So why don't we just start with you? She just came home, and then I think you were starting to say she has to go off meds. Maybe we can just start there again.
Okay. So when she returned, shortly after, about 2 months after she returned home, she came to me and asked if she could get off all of her prescription medication, which is very scary because I don't know, at that point I was like, what does this all mean? I'm not sure if we should do this. So at that moment, I didn't really respond. I listened to her and I said, I'm not sure what we're going to do, but I appreciate you sharing that with me. Talked to my husband. He too wasn't sure. We're kind of like, what do we do? But you know what? That is something we hadn't done. We hadn't listened to our child, and we hadn't tried not having her medicated. So we did talk to a doctor, and he helped us have her go off of all medication in a safe way. And I don't recommend, this is our truth. This is what our family decided to do. So I just want to let people know, if you do decide to do something like that, that's something you need to do with your doctor. We did not just cold turkey. It's a really slow process too. And there's times she didn't feel good. She had stomach aches, headaches, because there's kind of a withdrawal time when you've taken medications that long. But we supported her as best we could with some different holistic modalities, like meditation, and really taking time to calm and be in peace and quiet. And another one that we used is flower essences, essential oils, things that we could use in replace of medications to still deal with symptoms like anxiety. And I was able to be home. I was able to watch her daily. And this was kind of during the summer into the fall. So I was around her, and I told her too, if she needed to go back on a prescription, we would look back into that. It was not like an all or nothing to us. We're always looking to do what is best for our child and our children. So we were really aware if we got into a crisis situation that we would, go back into medical or hospital, whatever we needed to do.
And how did she do then, coming off the meds?
She did really well. And as she got off, she felt so much better. The meds really made her feel numb, and that's why she wanted to get off. She said, I feel numb to the world. I have no feeling. So she didn't have happiness or sadness. She just had no, numb, just completely numb. There was some time that she didn't have very good memory of things that you would think she would remember too, like birthdays, big occasions. She said, I don't even remember those times. So getting her off the meds just seemed like the option for her. And now she's been off 4+ years. And she's doing very well. She's thriving. What else we also had to do was she does online school. So she was not wanting to go back into the public school system. So she had to prove to us that she could do online school, and she's done that from 9th to now 12th grade. And that could be a struggle too, because she's home quite often. But she has told me that she probably wouldn't have survived or be living if she would have been back in the public school.
So as we kind of move more into this discussion about intuition and intuitive parenting and all of this. So again, you were pretty, I think you were shocked, maybe is not too strong a word, when she asked to go off the medication. What was your sort of gut reaction to that request?
I was kind of like that. To me, I thought that was I was okay with the decision. I still had a little bit of fear, but I wasn't sure how my husband would take that. So we had to really have a talk through it. Because you do something so long and you don't really realize that there is another way. Your mindset is like, this is what you do. This is what the doctors tell you. So it was really shifting it and looking at it in another way. And it was, in the beginning, I would say fearful. I was fearful. I was kind of on edge watching her and making sure, how are you feeling? Really like questioning and observing and making sure it was okay. But it just, for her, it was really a smooth just a smooth adjustment. But I know the fear. I know people will have a fear, and I had this moment where I just, like you were saying earlier, off the camera though, you sometimes have to surrender. Like I had to surrender to this moment and just have faith that it's going to be okay. Because sometimes you get to that point where you're like, what else can we do? I think that having her sent away and returning and not knowing what else to do, if she would continue on meds, we could be doing more facility treatment, treatment facilities, adjusting meds. Let's just try it. Try not doing this. I call it a cycle, because I feel like you get in this cycle of the mental health. Like I have friends where I see their children and it's like they're in and out of treatment, and it's sad to see that happening.
Well, and of course it begs the question of whether the treatment is making a difference, if it's actually getting to what is really going on. And yeah. I mean, I wonder now, I personally don't use the term mental illness. Mm-hmm. I know others do. Mm-hmm. I think because I fundamentally believe there's more going on, and that it's probably more physiological than it is mental. It may be neurological, but that's still, I think, different from what most people think of when they think of mental health. And I don't, other people may have a different take on that. But as you sort of look back and on it now, do you think she was mentally ill, or do you think there was something going on internally within her that just wasn't finding a way to be expressed, or that she wasn't having certain needs met, or what do you think was really going on?
Yeah, so now when I look back, when she got off her medication, she started to experience spiritual gifts. So gifts I say gifts because I think that they are, but she was hearing, she hears voices, like almost, she describes it as a radio. So trying to tune in, she can't exactly hear what they're saying. It's mainly at night. She sees spirit. She feels other people's emotions very intensely.
Which is probably why going to a public school system
Yeah.
was horrific if she didn't know how to set up some boundaries and keep other people's energy out.
Yes, exactly. So now that I look back, she's a highly sensitive. So she's an empath. So an empath, just like what you said, you absorb all of the energies of others and you can't distinguish it from your own. So if somebody in her classroom is feeling sadness, she would feel that. And now she has it to where if we're even in Target, she has had a moment where she's started crying. And she's like, Mom, it's not me, it's somebody else. So she can now distinguish it, that it's not hers. But can you imagine, in a public school, for her was like overwhelming, because I remember her saying it too. Kids are being bullied and pushed, and I just can't handle, I can't concentrate in the classroom because I think people are talking about me. And, it was so overwhelming to her, that I think that's when, too, the depression started. Like, she couldn't go. Her body is trying to protect her and keep her from that space. So she's learned now different tools to keep her vibration, her space protected. But she's a highly sensitive child, and I think that's what we're seeing more of. More children are being born with these gifts or other types of gifts. So I noticed, I was just looking recently on her, she had a neuropsych test done, and it was gifted in her language. So she's highly intelligent. Her IQ was average, but it was her reading and her verbal, like her language was very high. So I look back at her as a child, I thought she was a challenging child because she would question everything. And that was, to me, challenging, but she was really a child that wanted to understand everything. So instead of trying to question and be defiant, she's trying to learn. And we're calling her defiant. So our type of parenting wasn't working well with her either. So we were more authoritative with her, like, listen to us, you do what we say. And she's questioning us because that was the type of child she was. She was intuitive and wanting to learn. And we saw her as trying to, defy us. So now I look back, I see all of this different behavior, and I look at it in a different way. And I just want parents to realize there are other ways too to look at, not everything is what it seems. So when I look back, she probably did have anxiety, but the anxiety was because she was feeling so much and so overwhelmed.
And then that was what caused all the lashing out and even the physical violence is just her body saying, I can't deal with this anymore. I have to get some of this out.
Yes. Because now, even when she was around 15, when she was off meds, she could say, Mom, I feel really angry. She could talk through it and not have it come out in a violent rage. She had that, now she has that way of verbalizing, and we can talk through it. And she still feels depressed at times. So I feel like there's still some other issues going on, but it's where we can handle it and talk through it. Or she'll even say, I feel depressed, but I don't think it's me. It's something around me. So having that support, that we give her that support and we listen to her, it's so amazing. I think a gift to her.
And so when did you start trying to sort of trust your own intuition more and listening to, your own gifts, which we all have, I believe, even if we don't realize it.
That is right. That's what I like to say. We do all have it. I do think that I have listened quite often to it, but for some reason not with my child. I always searched out outside influence. Even
Yeah,
books.
because gosh knows we couldn't know best, right? We're only their moms or parents.
Right? I remember just as her little too, I'd be searching on wherever I could find or buying books or asking other parents or grandparents. Because really, I wasn't tuning in for her as a mom. But I was pretty good about listening for myself. But really that moment when she asked to get off medications was really that turning point, because I saw the shift and I'm like, I have this gift that we all have, but I'm going to start using it. I'm going to start working on it too. So I did start listening more in meditation and quiet and journaling. And so now I feel like I really have this great connection to my inner wisdom, what I call, my gut feeling. And it's almost to the point where I just can easily listen. But it takes practice. It takes healing too, for clearing out any blocks that we've had. So there's a lot of, for some of us, we have to work through some stuff to get to that point.
Well, and a couple of questions. I'm trying to think which one to ask first. So some people will say, gosh, well, I've listened to my instincts or my inner wisdom before, and like things went really bad. So, I don't trust it anymore. So how do you help people get around mistrusting if they've had what they consider to be a bad experience?
Yeah, sometimes I think our intuition is telling us, it could be something we're getting a little message, but it could be something that's for us later down in the road, for our future self too. So maybe that it seems bad, but maybe there's something that we were like, I feel like I was supposed to go on this journey. Really? Who would choose to go through this journey? I really feel like I was, because I could be here to share with others. So sometimes I think there are things that, and I just remember too thinking I knew there was a reason for that. So that was bad, but I knew I had to go through it. So I think sometimes there's something else that's coming out from it that's going to be positive.
Even if it doesn't feel that way at the time.
No, even though it doesn't feel that at the time. And so what I think is the best way to do is journal whatever that is. And then maybe months later, you look back and go, that's why I had to experience that. I think it can be very powerful.
Well, and another thing I know that comes up a lot with people is they don't even know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? Because we get so detached from listening to our inner wisdom that it has to pretty well hit us over the head with a board before we'll listen. I wonder if you have like a few tips that you share for, how can you notice when something is the right move or the wrong decision, that doesn't involve, columns of pros and cons and speaking to everybody in the world about what they would do or what they think, right? Which just gives all our power away to other people.
Right. So to me, like, intuition is, if I'm just sitting in quiet, the first thought that comes to my mind, that to me is my intuition. And mine comes through thoughts. Some people get images. So there's different ways people experience. Now, it's not going to be like a critic, like someone being like that, because that's not your intuition. So if you're hearing like negative talk,
that's your ego.
That's your ego.
Right? Trying to keep you safe in the status quo, just, right? Survival.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's learning to distinguish that too. So, and your intuition could be something as simple as one word, a sentence, a feeling. And I guess for me, what really started it is the journaling piece. and I know a lot of people don't like to journal, but what I would have, it was mainly when I was taking, like, about to fall asleep, or it's kind of funny when I'm in the shower because it's quiet.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The shower is a great spot for getting
Also,
downloads of
right?
ideas.
Yes, also, and those are the ones, those are your intuition coming through too, even those ideas. So business or anything, I'll get an idea and I'll be like, oh yeah, but there's a reason. It's that intuition telling you. So I can't like have paper next to my bed if all of a sudden something comes through, and I'll write it down. It might not make sense at the time. Or what I'll do sometimes too is just take a few minutes and try to get myself really quiet. And I'll ask a question like, what do I need to know today? Maybe. And also I'll just start writing, and it doesn't have to really be full sentences. I don't correct my grammar. I just let it flow out. And then it might not make sense at that moment, but maybe I'll look back at it later and I'll be like, oh, that's what I needed to know. So it's not questioning it either. So I think a lot of us will have something come through and we'll be like, well, why was that? What is that about?
Or I just made that up.
Yeah.
No, that's what I wanted to hear. So
Yeah.
that I just created that thought myself.
Yeah. Yes, try not to do that, because just practice letting it come and maybe writing it down at first.
Well, and I think just to go back to something you said earlier about the fact that, our inner voice, our inner wisdom, our
Yeah.
inner mentor, people have all sorts of names for
Yes.
it, our higher self,
Yes,
is always going to be kind
it is for sure. That is right.
and loving
Loving.
and supportive.
Mhm.
And even if the answer is not something that you want to hear, it's never going to be in a disparaging or critical or mean-spirited or undermining or, any of those other ways that, as you say, we often talk to ourselves in such mean ways.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And another way I know that that I've heard a lot of people talk about, and I think it's useful too, is to sort of, notice not everybody feels things in their body, but if you notice, do you feel lighter when as you listen to that guidance, that message, that word, do you feel a sense of relief? Do you feel lighter? Do you get tingles? I mean, you could get like full on excited about something, or does it instead feel constricted and closed off and heavy, or do you feel this sort of sense of dread?
Mhm.
And then that's,
Right.
a big no from the universe.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it. Learning how it's coming through to you. Like I said, I know that people have this experience. If they're going somewhere and they feel like something's off, listening to that. Like I had an instance where I had to walk out of a movie theater just a couple weeks ago because something felt off to me, and I'm not even sure what it was. And I actually left the movie because I didn't question. I just got this kind of the yucky feeling, and there was something not right. And I'm so in tune that I'm like, I just need to leave. I'm not sure why, but I just do need to leave. So that was a feeling. It wasn't like words or thoughts coming through. It was an actual feeling to me. So we're all going to have it different. So tuning into what that is for you too.
And I just want to acknowledge that making decisions this way can open people up to some skepticism, even ridicule, right? Because we are such a hyperly logical, analytical society. Obviously, there are exceptions to that, but we tend to place much more value on decisions that have been reached in that way, and to discount intuition, instinct, all these other ways that traditionally, as in really, really long time ago, were quite honored.
Right.
Yeah. But how have you found that it has become easier to kind of just trust in it and make a lot of decisions in your life based on this sort of intuitive guidance that you're getting?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still use logic too, so it's not like I'm all just going by my intuition. There's times that we still need to use our logic mind and go with that. But I do feel that we're given this gift for a reason, and it's trying to help guide us. And I haven't had anything go wrong by following my intuition.
And so how do you work with parents? It's sort of helping them, develop this muscle, and just in generally also recognizing that our children have these gifts as well. Even though, again, most of us didn't grow up with models about how to honor that in ourselves, and we're not, we're not used to looking for that in our kids either.
Right. So I do one-on-one coaching with the parent, because I think once the parent can kind of shift the way they're looking at things, or the way they're holding space for their child, then their child will feel that and feel that they're more in that secure, safe environment and open up to their parents. So, and it goes back to what I've experienced and how I've changed. And so what I do with parents is we really look at some of the spiritual aspects of making changes in their life. So learning about intuition. I like to have them create some different kind of daily rituals, kind of lifting, and we didn't talk much about this. There's a vibration. Everyone has a different vibrational frequency they're living at. Kind of lifting that up too, because that affects your whole home as well. Like love is one of the highest vibrations. Depression, sadness is one of the lowest. We don't want to live in that space. So I teach them that too, how to live in a higher frequency themselves and having that made in their home. So we just get into really different shifts that they can make that are going to change the family dynamics, or even just, help the one child that is, experiencing spiritual gifts.
And
yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say too, once we learn to listen to our intuition and that of our child, and I'm really about tuning in to our children and letting them have say. And so that's kind of that other way of parenting. We're no longer in our house doing that authoritative. It's more like a team environment where we all have a say, but there's boundaries around that still. We still have rules, but we're each able to contribute and have our voices heard.
And I know you are also currently working on a book as well, right?
Yes, and that's where the sacred child, that word came from. I feel like a lot of our children that are looked at to be different, whatever way, spiritually, mentally, any other way, I feel like they're sacred. I feel like all children are sacred, but these children are really here, I feel like, to make some changes. And the way that they question authority is because we need to make changes in our society. So I consider them sacred children. So the title of the book is Sacred Child, An Awakening. I forgot the whole title. Our Sacred Children, an awakened parent to a spiritually gifted child. Yes. And it's coming out in fall 2018. And I really get more into our story, and I talk about different chapters like advocacy for our children, relationships between mother, father, and our other children, get into what an empath is, how to support them. So there's a lot, and it's going to be interactive too. So there'll be spaces for people to write their own answers to different questions. I'm super excited about that to be coming out. I think it's really something needed to be out in the world right now.
Well, of course, it shifts the thinking, at least potentially, that people might have if they start to look at their children, even children who are behaving in what objectively looks just abominable
Right?
fashion, right?
Yeah.
If you think, geez, I wonder if there's something else going on here, right? If we take as the premise that all behavior is communication, which I believe is the case, then, what are they communicating? What are they struggling with? What are they having difficulty with? And, could it be that they are taking on a lot of stuff that isn't theirs, or they're feeling it, they're picking up on all the people around them, and that in fact, they really are struggling just to process all the stuff that's coming at them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. That's what I want parents to just realize, that you look at things, question things, go inside your intuition. What do you think? You don't always have to listen to the doctor. And I didn't realize that. Like, I just thought that's what you had to do. That's what you did. I didn't question things. And now I look back and I wish I would have questioned things more. So I really want awareness around that. You are the parent. You can question. You can search out other ways and what works for you and your child.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, has your daughter then done her own work now to sort of figure out how her energy works, how her intuition works, how her, other tools for her as an empath to set up boundaries and clean out other people's stuff that's like not hers?
Yeah. So I like to say this sometimes to people: instead of therapy, she now has Reiki or healing done on her. Instead of like medication, she'll have meditation and essential oils, Chinese herbs. So she totally has a different lifestyle than she had before. And she herself has learned how to protect her space, and so that she doesn't have that constant feel of others' emotions coming in. She has learned how to, at night, if there's some spirit or something coming in to bother her, how to get them to leave her space in a safe way. She uses crystals to protect herself. We do different things in our home. This is stuff I used to not do. So I just want people to know too, that I used to not be this way, but I think you do to learn the tools to help your child. So we like sage our house, which is a way of clearing your house. We do that with ourselves. So there's so many different ways that you can protect someone that is an empath.
I'm looking at our time, and I think we have come to the end here with I know an hour is about as much as we can ask people to sort of tune in. So I just we'll definitely post the link to your website. And I want to thank you so much for sharing the story of your daughter and kind of your journey together, because I think it's really fascinating and hopefully will be really helpful to others. And so thank you so much for being a guest, and I want to thank everybody out there for joining us today, and we hope it's been valuable conversation for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Heather. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.